Welcome to Building Something Admirable, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of how to start a healthcare-related business. I'll share each step that we took to establish our now thriving practice at Meyer Medical, including our highs and lows, insider advice, and real-life lessons in every episode. Good afternoon, budding medical entrepreneurs. This is Alex with the Building Something Admirable podcast. Thanks for tuning in. But I think it's best that we talk about just doing it, getting started, and pulling the trigger on just finally spending time and money on your entrepreneurial venture and getting started. All right, let's do it. There's a term that is used a lot that I certainly didn't coin myself, but can relate to viscerally, and that is Wantrepreneur. I don't say it in any sort of insulting kind of way because it is what it is. There's a lot of risk involved with entrepreneurship, but the beauty is in the medical space, risk is less for a number of reasons, and we'll start there. Realistically, you have more security because supply is quite limited, especially in certain areas geographically and certain areas in terms of service offering. A lot of your patients should be relatively price insensitive, depending. So if you are doing a cash-based practice, that's one thing. But if you are able to function on a solely insurance reimbursed model, then really the sensitivity is just if your market is fully insured or reasonably fully insured. Also, it's one of those things that people are always going to need. So depending on what your medical service is, I picked inpatient rehabilitation and medical weight loss services and prehab, obviously kind of as a hybrid of the two, but those are pretty well insulated from economic downturns and fluctuations. Now, of course, the cash-based aspect of a Meyer is going to be a little more sensitive to changes in economic environment, but overall, especially for the inpatient rehab side of what we do, that ain't going anywhere. When I was looking for a job, I had plenty of biased skilled nursing facility recruiters saying, oh, no, there's a drive against inpatient rehab. Everyone's going to be either sent home or sent to skilled nursing level for a little less intense care. The IPR model is dying. Sure, whatever you think. But obviously certain aspects of medical care are more price sensitive. So medical aesthetics, that's going to be a cash service, clearly. Cosmetic stuff in general, clearly more sensitive to economic fluctuations. But that's partly why those services should be priced with a little bit of extra margin, and that factors in that risk. So you can kind of make the nest egg during boom times if you're concerned about there being any fall off of demand, but I don't think it's going to happen as long as you're in a saturated market. Like when I came from Pittsburgh, that was one of the problems with pain docs, which is not my thing. There were a number of pain management fellowship programs in the area, sports medicine too, and so pain management positions after graduation were a little more limited. I'm sure if anyone wanted to get creative and build some kind of a specialized hybrid pain and something else practice, or pain management for varsity field hockey players, or they really explored a niche and doubled down here and provided some telemedicine services. And Pennsylvania is a big state, so in that example, you can't imagine there being too much of a supply limitation geographically. And even so, Pittsburgh is a big city, so if someone really didn't want to do any sort of telemed, I'm sure they could still build the practice there, if done right and marketed appropriately, all that fun stuff. So security is there. So that should take one aspect of officially going from doodling plans in your notebook or getting Excel rich with forecasts, going from that state to actually doing something. And This rant is triggered by having one of many meetings of well-intentioned people giving semi-solicited advice how to market our service and market our practice and all this stuff. It's like, I appreciate that. But right now, we're doing well enough on our own. We've got a business background. We're networking extremely well. That's not our problem. Any help we need is boots on the ground soldiers to help us actually put together these marketing funnels and make the follow-up calls and manage the in-house pharmacy services we're doing and all the things that are part of the broader experience, not strategy people. And that's going to be something that you'll have to face too, is as the head or high up person in a medical practice, you're going to get a lot of unsolicited advice, and don't turn it away. Don't yell at your family and friends for trying to help. Just take it all with a grain of salt. And unless the person truly is more expert than you, which plenty of people are more expert than me on pretty much everything, that's the way life is, you don't have to completely engage with it, especially if there are better uses of your time, because your time is going to be limited. And at some point, you're going to have to just take the leap. You can't possibly plan it out to the T to remove the risk. Most likely, any business error you make in the beginning is going to be underestimating the amount of work that needs to be done that is not specialized work. And in those cases, again, you don't need strategists, you need soldiers. You need someone who's just going to do what you need help with and grind with you. So to get your practice launched, really that's the part of planning that you want to spend the most time on once you have a basic business plan. Get your thoughts together, figure out who your market is, who your avatar is that they're going to be appealing towards. Be sure that you really know the basics of what drives the demand in your sector. So in my case, for prehab, the biggest driver in most areas is in the orthopedic procedures. Prehab applies to almost any surgical procedure. There could be an appropriate prehab case to be made, but really, it's orthopedics. Most of the folks are going to be, struggling with their weight, and that's caused them to be less active and some simmering inflammation, all of which increase the rates of osteoarthritis. Understanding that then helps you plan out phase one of your networking and outreach plans here of shaking hands and kissing babies with the local surgical practice, and maybe buying some loosely targeted Facebook ads at a reasonable price and not going hyper. I wouldn't pick weight loss. That's gonna be a little bit too broad and expensive, most likely. Once you get those basics down, and you shouldn't even really be starting with that anyway. You should be starting with the free networking and figuring out how your backdoor open idea sets your insurance policy main gig that is going to provide the security for you to make the leap into your actual entrepreneurial venture. But if you plan this correctly and been successful in finding a good position for that backdoor open job, then you shouldn't have to do too much on the marketing side. You should have some overlap, in which case it makes it fairly easy to name drop your practice or service or whatever you're doing in the space, because I understand that medical entrepreneurship, the things that we're talking about, could apply in so many different areas beyond just the medical practice. right? Even if maybe you love coding, and so you have your primary gig and you're looking for how to start a practice or firm that directly networks with medical practices, and that's your entrepreneurial venture. Well, what's your primary gig? Do you meet other providers there? Do you meet independent practices? Can you reach out to one of them and say, hey, listen, let me take a piece of your of your billings, show you that I can get you reimbursed faster with more money, so I can do more of the coding for you, save you on the work. That's all you really need to do to get started. Do something that someone else is already doing, just do it better. But eventually there comes the point, keep circling back to this, there will be the point where you've done enough planning. You'll never feel done with planning. You'll never feel like you have all that you need to know and all that you need to do to feel comfortable making the leap. That's why it's the leap. That's why it's not the step. At some point you just got to do it, because the time that you're wasting not starting is costing you money. And you can either take the leap and really quickly pay down your ignorance, or you can do it super slowly and gradually try and find the questions that you don't know to ask and the answers to those questions. Or you can just do it, especially if you're not taking a ton of risk in the beginning. In my case, we moved to town and signed the lease really quickly. So that was a pretty big risk, which required us to take on some business debt, which certainly put some stress on us. It's the wrinkles in the gray beard. But I didn't need to necessarily do that. I could have just cranked out work and put some money aside and then planned it out and all that stuff. Then I'd be 8-9 months down the road here with a little less stress, a little more knowledge of the market, but none of the work done. None of the building practice work done that needs to be done. None of the networking, none of the strategy prep that has gone through 6 iterations by now, which gets us to a point that I feel like we're near phase 2. We're about to hit phase 2, where we have multiple revenue streams. That's begun already, because we're already filling in-house labs and prescriptions, so that's good. If I'd waited, we still have low overhead, but no new prospects, no revenue, no anything else. And I'd be 1 year closer to retirement without a business done by that. So you just gotta do it. And some folks are gonna just by nature require a little more time before they launch. That's fine. But you get to a certain point too where after you run in circles on paper for so long, you start to get burned out of the thinking about it phase. And then you might get less jazzed about your idea. In which case, maybe you didn't want to be an entrepreneur for the right reasons. I don't know. That's entirely personal. Or you may convince yourself of that and have missed out on the opportunity to really make that difference that you've always wanted to do. But make that, take that risk for that higher level of growth that you always wanted to attempt. You don't want to get to the point of retirement or, under deathbed, without being too morbid, and say, I wish I had done it when I had the chance. So, in summary, basically, just do it. Take all the thought processes you've done before, look on paper, write out a framework, map out step by step each of the major milestones you need to reach to know that you're moving towards that big milestone. So again, for me, that would be what steps do I need to hit to have passive income coming in. Okay, we just did that with the meds and labs. All right, the next one, organic sales of the book. Okay. Or paid members in the practice. Those are my next medium-term checkpoints to the larger goal of I can take a vacation finally. you gotta have goals that are both, monetary based and smart goals. This rant was inspired by a lot of well-intentioned advice, and that's very well appreciated. But in all the time it's taken to obtain that advice, those giving it could have just put together a marketing funnel or something. I don't know. Even when I'm tired, burnt out, or whatever, frustrated, my intention is to provide good, usable information with a positive, inspirational tone. So, if this came off too pushy, please tell me below. If it was not pushy enough, cool, let me know. Otherwise, please give me a little feedback on what you'd like to hear more about, and we'll cover that stuff too. Or preferentially, in fact. All right. Best of luck. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more insider advice on building something admirable. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe below.